welcome to this Q&A session. So I've been sent some questions in that I'm going to do my best to answer. I'm going to do my best to answer them in the time that we have, so I'm not going to be on here for too long. So the first question that I had, I'm just going to read it out exactly as it was asked. And it's quite a deep dive question to have straight away, so brace yourselves, people, brace yourselves. So the question is, what is the minimum we should be doing each week as women in our 40s to ensure we don't lose muscle mass as we get older? Okay, so a couple of things there. So losing muscle mass is it's a natural, normal process with inactivity, and it's called sarcopenia. And that process happens from the age of 30 and increases each decade by 3 to 8%, just checking my percentages there, and then it increases again over 60. Now, there are lifestyle factors that you can put into place to reduce that. So if you're already on here and watching this, then you've already got a mind for fitness. That is literally the most important thing that you can do to reduce the instance of that sarcopenia. So there are 3 sort of main factors that affect it: nutrition, hormones, and exercise/activity. Now, hormones, as we know, are complex and difficult, and again, all of the understanding around hormones, especially in women, are still emerging just because of the lack of evidence-based research there is around that. So that is all still very much an area that is being tested at the minute. In men, obviously I know the question was about women, but in men, the testosterone has an impact on that kind of that muscle reduction, that sarcopenia. But in women, the estradiol, which is part of your one of the types of estrogen you have, has a big impact on that as well. The articles that I was reading about all of this, there wasn't a conclusive answer to say whether HRT does or doesn't help with this. Rather, and again, because there's a lot of research that's still happening, which is amazing, because a lot of research still needs to happen, because recently a light has been shone on the whole menopausal situation, so that is amazing. So hopefully in the coming months and years there's going to be a lot more evidence-based information around this. However, 2 things are very evidence-based, which are exercise and nutrition. So nutrition, making sure you have a good balanced diet with plenty of protein, because that is your kind of muscle building, growth and repair. Those amino acids that you have that make up that protein, they are quality, not quantity. So there are lots of different types of amino acids that are proteins, but getting good quality ones, that's what you want. So good quality meat and fish if you are a carnivore, omnivore, or if you are vegan or vegetarian, just making sure you have a good range, a really good quality of the proteins that you're having in. And then also just making sure with the exercise that you are active. So if you can do resistance-based work to keep your muscles working, your muscles are really, really responsive. They will continue to respond. They will continue to grow and be challenged by whatever you put them through. So the earlier you can start your resistance-based training, the better. So if you are starting resistance-based training in your 20s and you are working up, then the earlier the better for that. And then you can continue on, because as you get to your maybe your 60s and 70s, let's say, because let's think of ourselves as being active for our entire lifetimes, it's a lot harder to start loading you up then. So if you can start resistance training earlier, then you're going to give yourself a really good stead as you get older. Now 40 is not too late to start resistance training. You can start doing that by just using your body weight as resistance. That's incredibly important as well. But there is also a lot of research to show that cardiovascular exercise just is also really, really important for reducing muscle wastage as well. So just being active, if you can load up your body with weight-bearing exercises, so running is great, but only if you are a runner. Don't start running at 70, you just bring it up slowly. You know, there's a process for all of this kind of stuff, but weight bearing is really, really important. There are things that you can do at home to do weight bearing activities. and bone density increasing activities like stamping, walking up and down the stairs, things like that, is really going to load you up. If you are completely inactive at the minute and trying to get active, then you're going to want to start off slow, start with walking, and then start to build in a bit more sort of bone density stuff. So I hope that that is in some way helpful. So just as a quick recap, to reduce that involuntary muscle mass, that sarcopenia, exercise is really, really crucial, but so is nutrition. Again, thinking about the quality of that protein. And we know that hormones have an effect. One other thing to mention about hormones, which a lot of people kind of forget, because when we start talking about hormones, especially as women, we think estrogen, progesterone, testosterone straight away. The thing then over 60s, the main hormonal problem in over 60s as a general population is insulin resistance. So increasing and making sure that you're active, exercise really reduces that insulin resistance. So you're going to be reducing the I can't even think of the word, sorry, reducing the, basically, that getting type 2 diabetes, you're going to reduce the risk. That's, oh, it's such a small word, I don't know why I couldn't think of it. You're reducing the risk of getting that type 2 diabetes and all of the complications that can arise from that as well. So exercise is literally one of the best forms of defense against a lot of these kinds of problems. And just remember that we are meant to move. Okay, we are meant to move. So that is hopefully an answer to that question. I have another question on here that I'm just going to read out and answer. Best weighted exercises for glutes. Good question. Okay, so glutes, just to recap, bum muscles, 3 glute muscles in your bum muscles. You've got your gluteus maximus, gluteus minimus, and gluteus medius. Very interestingly named. So you've got the big one, the little one, and the one in between. And they cover all around your bottom. They are the biggest muscle group in the body. They're also the laziest muscle group in your body. If you don't use them properly, your quads, so the front of your thighs, will take over and your glutes won't fire properly. So it's really important to keep those glutes powered up and keep them working. And the best kind of exercises for those glutes are ones that are going to get them to contract hard. So you got your squats, your weighted squats, all your different types of squats. But if you can if you really push your bottom out into those kinds of things, you want to be using deadlifts as well. That's really good for the glutes, really firing them back and really holding and thinking about those glutes as you're firing up from the deadlift. A good morning as well, where you have the weight on the back and you're bending forwards. That's also a really good one. A weighted glute bridge. So you're down on the mat, you've got a weight onto the front of your hips and you're pushing up, whether you are pushing up and pulsing, or you're up and down. Anything where you are putting that load through those glutes, so you're forcing them to contract. And then if you can load them eccentrically, so if you can load them as they are then lengthening again, that is where you're going to build some really good strength into those glutes. So deadlifts, squats, lunges, obviously. I mean, these are all the exercises that you guys love, right? I hear this all the time. Deadlifts, good mornings, hip thrusts, glute bridges, anything like that. Running is really great for the glutes as well. Obviously that's not weighted, but you're using your body weight. So I hope that is helpful for that question. I'm getting a thumbs up, so I'm guessing that's a helpful question. Another question here, any exercises that can help with runner's knee? So runner's knee. So runner's knee, for anyone who doesn't know, is a name given to something, 2 or 3 different things. So runner's knee is sort of a generalized term. It most commonly, and I'm going to talk about what I know here, not about what I don't know. So most commonly it's from a tight IT band, so iliotibial band, which starts from, I know you can't see, but it starts from the top of your, insert into the top of your glute onto the side, and in fact into your TFL, onto your side here, and then it goes all the way down on the outside of the thigh and then hooks in underneath the kneecap. So it's really long, it's a really long thick band that comes out of the TFL and comes in underneath the knee. So that causes a really sharp pain, sometimes when you're going up and down stairs or when you're just starting off a run, and then it will ease off. So that is generally runner's knee, and that is generally from a really tight IT band. The absolute best thing that you can do for that is when it starts, not waiting for it to be chronic, but when it starts, you can foam roll or SMR, self myofascial release, into the IT band. So you're coming down into that band and you're working, if you're working with your thumb, you're working on finding that spot all the way down that thigh where it feels. I'm just going to show you. Here we go. So here's my little legs, got no shoes on, hope that's okay. So TFL up here, so the band comes all the way down here. So what I would be doing is working in here, finding a sore spot. So a little bit sore there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on that little trigger point until that goes off, and I'm going to hold and press and really putting some pressure into there. That's going to release, and I'm going to carry on down. So I'm going to work all the way down to try and find a little snapshot there. It's a good job I was wearing some shorts, wasn't it? And there's a little snapshot of how to do that. Now I do have a foam rolling video or an SMR video due to be released fairly soon, so I can release that and I can show you exactly how to use your foam roller to release that IT band, because it is a really, really common one with runners, just because of how tight that IT band can get. As I said, it's a really thick band. The other thing with that is if it is really painful, as it should get easier as you get into the run, but it will just keep happening because it's just going to be tight, tight, tight. You can help to reduce inflammation into that with a bit of ice as well after the run. So ice is really good because it acts as a natural anti-inflammatory, and it helps to promote blood flow, which again is healing power of oxygen in the blood. So hopefully that is a question that is helpful in any way, shape or form. Yes, apparently so. Any other questions? If not, then I'll just chat for a little bit about anything else. Obviously, this is our first ever Q&A, so I'm not expecting floods of questions in, but that is the questions that I had to answer. If you have any other questions, you can put them into the chat, or you can take yourself off mute and ask. And while I'm just seeing if there are any other questions, I'm just going to talk about, I've got my little sheet here of things I can talk about, of why we recommend 8 to 10 reps and the kind of exercises that we recommend for, I say we as females in training. That sounds like we're not females yet. You know what I mean? Females in fitness training. Why we recommend 8 to 10 reps for women over 40 and women in the perimenopause, and the kinds of things that we try and get you to do. So 8 to 10 reps is a good marker, because that is where human growth hormone is at its peak. As all of our hormones are changing, and obviously everybody is different at this point in time, we can capitalize on human growth hormone there, because as we start to reduce that testosterone that we have naturally, human growth hormone is the most prevalent at that kind of rep range. So we're going to capitalize on that by doing 8 to 10 reps. So that kind of 10 to 12 reps that we would generally use as a general standard for what we'd call hypertrophy training or strength training, that applies more to men than to women. So again, because of the blood testosterone levels. So human growth hormone, 8 to 10, start to really think about doing those kind of rep ranges, even though you think, well, actually you should be doing more. Those rep ranges as well, just talking quickly about rep ranges, they do different things. So if you're doing maybe 12 to 15, even up to 20 reps with a lighter weight, that's generally for endurance training, whereas the much lower reps, so even up to 4 reps, is for power, so we're really heavy weight. So that's generally where we are, but as most of my training plans will stick with 8 to 10 reps right in the middle of that point, unless you are sport specific going for power or massive endurance. So that's where we'll be. So the kind of things that to get you to do are going to be things like lifting, obviously lifting. So, and all of these movements that I'm going to be talking about are movements that you can do in your day-to-day life, because at the absolute crux of training, fitness and health has to be your life. It has to be life-giving, life-affirming, and sort of relevant. So that's what we call functional training. Just realized there's a lot of mess in the background. I'm really sorry. This is real life. This is what happens, and I'm stuck at home with COVID and a child, so sorry about all this. Couldn't see that when I was on the small screen. I've only just had a look around. Anyhow, where was I? Lifting. Yes, so all of the exercises that that I personally and most trainers should be trying to get you to do will be ones that you use in day-to-day life, so that your training is helpful for your life, not so that your life is helpful for your training. Okay, so that is really, really important. So lifting anything, so lifting down from the ground, lifting up, pushing up, working in a multi-planar movement. So we are 3D beings. I talk about this all the time on my videos. We're 3D. We move in 3 dimensions. Therefore, we should train in 3 dimensions. We're not just forwards and backwards kind of people. Even if you're a runner, you need to work side to side. You need to work up and down. You need to work back and forth and backwards as well as forwards. So that's really important. So lifting, carrying. So most of you I know are mums. You've had to carry for quite a few years now. As your children get older, you carry less and less. So you lose a bit of that functional strength. And with the dawning of online shopping and stuff, we actually do carry a lot less now than we ever used to. So doing things like farmers walks. So when you're walking loaded up, a bit like shopping bags, you're holding some weights down your sides and you're walking along. That's a really great exercise to do. Also lifting and carrying onto the shoulders, lifting and carrying onto the front, doing any exercises where you're moving in any kind of different planes, holding onto a weight. That's going to be really functional, and that's going to really help you out. Pressing, so lift, carry, press. Overhead press, we do a lot of overhead press. Overhead press is really, really good. Anything overhead can feel particularly exhausting because we're not used to working out there. Also to the sides, that can feel particularly exhausting as well. But again, really using that, I mean, you think about putting something onto a high shelf, thinking about lifting and putting something here, reaching over, getting something out of the boot of the car, anything like that, that is prime for hurting yourself, getting injured. And if in your day-to-day life, and if you're not strong in those movements and you get yourself injured there, it's really hard to rehab yourself back to health. And whilst you're rehabbing yourself back to health, obviously you are not able to use those muscles, you're starting to lose your fitness. That sarcopenia that we were talking about earlier, that starts to come in, that atrophy, that muscle wastage. So really important to use those overhead movements as well. And the other thing is pull. So pulling, so we're doing upright rows for a pull. You can do there's good exercises that you can do where you're actually just pulling with resistance bands around and round, pulling against, so you're pushing and pulling in the same movements. So again, just using those really functional movements, and while you're doing that, you're thinking about the other muscles that are using again. So it's not all just in the arms, so you're using a lot of core in these, and you might be squatting or lunging or kneeling. The other thing I really wanted to talk about, which is something I talk about a lot to my one-to-one clients, but I don't know if I talk about it a lot on here, is the ability to work on being able to get yourself up off the floor unaided. This is really, really important, because think of yourself as a 20-year-old. Okay, no, even further back. Think of yourself as like a 10-year-old. Literally, they're on the floor, they're doing something on the floor, and then they're just springing up and then they're off. And you think, oh my life alive, how on earth? I'm down there and I'm like, oh, my leg, I can't sit there in that position for too long. I'm a bit creaky. You think of yourself now, as just mentioned, it's all just a bit like, oof, the involuntary sounds start coming out. Think about yourself at the age of maybe 60 or 80. Okay, I know that's a 20-year gap, but you know, think of yourself up there. If you are used to being down on the floor and getting yourself up in a way that you are able to activate your muscles, then that is great. Now think about yourself at that age and you fall over. And think about yourself, if you're not trained to be able to get yourself back up and you can't hold your own body weight, that all of a sudden becomes quite a life-threatening situation. If you have fallen down and you can't push yourself back up, or you can't get yourself into a position where you are safe, then that all of a sudden becomes something that could have been avoidable. Maybe not, it depends obviously on the situation. But it's really incredibly important to use exercise as a prevention, not as a cure. So it's really super important to think about how what we do now affects the people that we're going to be and the instances that may arise as we get older, and how we can safeguard our health and safeguard our personal safety and our bodies and the people around us by making sure that everything we do now impacts onto that. So being able to get yourself down and get yourself back up in a certain way. Now, I'm not talking about literally getting down and not using your hands to get back up, but there will be a time where, you know, if you work towards that, excuse me, if you work towards that, then you can do that. So it's something that I train my one-to-one clients to be able to do. And I will probably end up doing a video on that as well, on the different ways that we can do that, because there are a couple of different ways you can get yourself onto the ground and get yourself safely back up from all sorts of different stages. So that's something I really wanted to talk about because it's really, really, really important. Anybody have any questions as I'm just rattling through some of this super information? Nothing yet, nothing in the chat yet. So let me see what I've got on my thing here. I might talk about starting out, and hold on, I know what I'm going to talk about real quick, because it kind of feeds back into that first question, how many times a week should we be training? I didn't really answer that. I just sort of talked about what muscle wastage was and how to avoid it. So it really depends. It really depends on the person. If you are currently inactive, to get active, anything, start anywhere. Always just start anywhere. Once a week, then twice a week, then 3 times a week. Build it up over time, get that consistency in over time. Consistency, by the way, doesn't mean you have to work out every day. It just means that you are consistently showing up. It also doesn't mean you have to improve every time. It just means that you are consistently putting the effort in and showing up. That's consistency. It doesn't mean you have to work out every single day like a maniac. The World Health Organization, which is obviously evidence-backed, will say to do 150 minutes per week of moderate exercise or 75 minutes per week of intense exercise. Now, obviously, that's different. What that is different for different people because you go by your own effort. And that equates to either 5 sessions of 30 minutes per week, which is your 150 minutes of moderate exercise, or go do the maths, 5 lots of 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. I mean, you have to work the maths out. I go with the 150 minutes. So basically, that is what you want to be doing, 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week. Now that's so obviously 5 days. So you could go your Monday to Friday and have the weekend off, or you could do your Monday, Tuesday, off on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, off on Saturday, something on Sunday. So, but that moderate activity, it's all about effort all the time. It's not about how fast, it's not about how far, it's not about how much you can carry, it's not about how much you're lifting. It is about you and your effort, which is really, really, really key. Something I talk about all the time. So if it makes you feel moderate exercise, if it makes you feel out of breath slightly and pink in the cheek and like you're working, but you can still hold a conversation just, or say a few words, that is where you want to be. Vigorous exercise is more than that. It's where you are struggling to say more than a couple of words. You're really out of breath. You're really having to focus on what you're doing, and you can't maintain it for an extended period of time. So when it comes to how much to do every week, it's obviously incredibly individual. It's also what you can manage, what time you can manage, and the kinds of things that you're doing. So if you're doing super high impact stuff, a lot of jumping, a lot of bounding, plyometric work, then that is going to be really vigorous, really draining. You can't be doing that 5 times a week. That is, there's too much. for most people. There will be a few people out there that can, but it's not for me. So just making sure that you can use your body in different ways, doing weight training, doing cardio training, doing you know, recovery is part of your routine, by the way, people. Rest and recovery is part of your routine. Doing all of those things that we talked about before: lift, carry, press, push, pull, all of that kind of stuff, working it in, and then just making sure that you feel that you are improving. If you are struggling through, then it's really time to have a look at what you're doing and then bringing it back so that you can come back up again. So hopefully that is helpful with all of that. And the best way that you can track your fitness is, obviously there's like a multitude of fitness trackers out there. The best way that you can track your fitness is to think, how am I feeling? Is this feeling harder than last time? Is this feeling easier than last time? If it's feeling easier than last time, you can either add a bit of weight, add a bit of time. There are different things you can change: frequency, intensity, time, and type. You can change any of those things to be able to change your workout. That's what we call the fit principle. You can use any of that stuff. And then changing one of those variables will be able to give you something to track on, and it will just change the dimension of what you're doing. So that's a real whistle stop tour of the fit principle. Maybe I'll go into that another time on the next Q&A. We can have a whole session on the fit principle if you like. I mean, what a treat that would be. Are there any more questions? I feel like I've been talking for a really long time. I mean, I could go on all day. I really could. I know that you know that I really could as well. I'm going to stop the recording now and just have a little chat. So if you do have any other questions, or you want to see another one of these Q&As, then please let me know. I would be very happy to do one. I know that there will be lots of questions out there, and hopefully this has been a good or adequate start to get your sort of grey matter thinking about what kind of questions that you would like to ask. So please do let me know. You know where to find me. Comment on wherever you're seeing this. There will be a place to comment, so do that, and I will get back to you. See you all soon. Take care.